Hello lovelies. Can you feel that tension in the air? The dragging that shook everyone didn't actually begin with Pearl alone, and that is where the real twist lies. People rushed quickly to place her in the middle of the storm, but what most didn't notice was Maurice standing right there, quiet and watching. That silence became louder than anything else, and it pushed Pearl into the fire all by herself. Doesn't it shock you? She looked like the only target, while he had the chance to speak and reduce the pressure. Imagine being dragged endlessly while the person who could change everything just folds his hands. That was exactly how Pearl looked in the eyes of many. She was carrying all the heat, while Maurice seemed untouched. This is why people now argue that the dragging didn't start with her alone, because silence is also an action. And in this case, it shaped the entire storm. His refusal to talk left her open, and she stood right in the center of it all. So while fingers were pointed at her, the truth is that his silence made her the main target. Can you see how one quiet choice turned into something so big? People keep saying Pearl is the problem, but if you sit down and think about it carefully, you will see the matter from a different light. Many fans are pointing straight at her, but doesn't it make you wonder who really allowed everything to pile up? Who had the power to step forward, explain clearly, and stop the confusion before it got this bad? The answer is Maurice. He had every opportunity to clear the air, yet he decided to remain silent. That silence gave room for people to paint Pearl as the cause of everything. Isn't that surprising? Everyone shouting her name as if she lit the fire, when in reality, someone else could have stopped it earlier. This is why people now say that things are not balanced at all. Pearl has been carrying the blame, but the real weight of responsibility lies with the person who could have calmed everything before it became a storm. Silence is powerful, and in this case, it didn't protect anyone. It only made Pearl look like the villain. That is the gist fans are now picking apart. Can you see how different it looks when you place the pieces together? Pearl poured out her loyalty, her strength, and her energy into Maurice. She stood by him in ways that only someone who truly cared would do. But when the storm broke out and she needed him the most, he was nowhere to be found. Can you imagine that? She was left to face the fire, the dragging, and the accusations alone. His silence was not just quiet, it was heavy, and it left scars on her. She carried all the bruises while he walked away untouched. Doesn't that sound unfair? People are now pointing out how strange it looks that the one who gave everything ended up standing alone. Pearl was wounded in ways that words cannot even capture. Her image was dented, her name dragged, while the man she stood for escaped without scratches. That is why many feel she was betrayed by silence. If someone gives you loyalty and stands by you, then when storms come, shouldn't you stand back for them too? That is what people are asking now, and it's the question that keeps making this gist hotter. What do you think about someone disappearing when they are needed the most? Many fans are now turning their attention to Sonia's silence, and their voices are getting louder. At first, people admired her quietness and called it maturity. They said it showed she was handling the matter with grace. But now, those same fans are starting to ask hard questions. Isn't it unfair to leave Maurice hanging without a reply at all? Can you imagine waiting endlessly without knowing where you stand? That is what makes people restless. The same silence that once looked admirable is now being called unfair. It has left Maurice looking desperate while everyone else is watching Sonia closely. People are beginning to feel that silence is not always golden, especially when it drags someone else into confusion. Fans want answers, and they are tired of waiting. Doesn't it surprise you how quickly opinions can change when time stretches too long? One moment silence is praised, the next it is questioned. That is why people are restless and demanding clarity. They want to know if the waiting will end or if Sonia will continue to hold her ground without saying a single word. What do you think? Should she keep silent, or is it time to speak? Some voices are whispering another twist to this matter. They believe Sonia may actually be enjoying the attention her silence brings. Doesn't that sound interesting? The longer she stays quiet, the more her name remains in the spotlight. Every day, fans keep talking, and the suspense continues to grow. And while everyone is watching and guessing, Maurice is left looking desperate for a reply that refuses to come. Can you imagine how that feels? The silence turns into a game of patience, and Sonia seems to hold all the cards. Some fans argue that this is a clever move, while others call it unfair. But one thing is sure, the attention never leaves her side. Each day she remains silent, her name keeps trending, and people keep speculating about what her final decision will be. Doesn't it make you wonder if silence can sometimes be louder than speaking? This gist keeps dragging because the silence has become its own story. Maurice is left waiting, fans are left guessing, and Sonia is still right at the center. Isn't that the kind of suspense that drives everyone crazy with curiosity? People cannot stop pointing out how Pearl gave her all, but still ended up carrying the pain. She was loyal, she was supportive, and she poured energy into Maurice. Yet when the dragging came, she became the easy target. Doesn't that feel heavy to watch? Pearl was standing in the storm while Maurice appeared untouched. The dragging painted her as the center of the issue, even though silence made things worse. That is why fans are now saying this story has two sides. Pearl was not the only player in it, yet she carried most of the scars. She became the person everyone pointed at, while Maurice walked quietly in the background. Isn't that a bitter reality? People are now reflecting on how loyalty can sometimes leave someone broken, especially when support doesn't come back in return. This whole dragging became more painful because the person who could have shared the weight chose not to. So Pearl stood alone, and fans are left debating whether that silence was fair or not. It makes you wonder, how much can one person carry before it becomes too much? If you think about it closely, you will see that Maurice's silence was not a small thing. It wasn't just him refusing to speak, it was a choice that shaped the entire storm. Isn't that surprising? One decision not to talk changed the way the story grew. Fans kept guessing, speculating, and pointing fingers, but all of it could have been stopped if he had spoken earlier. Silence is powerful, but here it only created confusion. And that is what left Pearl in the middle of everything. She was exposed, dragged, and attacked, while Maurice's quietness added fuel to the fire. Doesn't it make you wonder why he chose that path? Was it fear, was it strategy, or was it simply neglect? These are the questions people are asking, and no one has the answers yet. The choice not to speak early is the reason the matter spiraled the way it did. It shows that sometimes silence is not strength, it can also be the very reason chaos spreads. Doesn't that sound like a lesson wrapped inside this gist? The loyalty Pearl showed was clear, and fans noticed it. She stood by Maurice, she gave energy, and she poured herself into the relationship. But when the time came for her to receive the same support, she didn't get it. That silence turned into a wound, and she had to face the backlash alone. Can you imagine the pain of standing in front of countless voices dragging your name, while the one person who could shield you is nowhere to be found? Pearl's image took the hit, but Maurice walked away with no scars. Isn't that heartbreaking? People are now looking at this story as one-sided loyalty. She gave her best, but when she needed someone to stand with her, there was no one. That is why fans keep returning to this gist. It feels like a story of giving everything and receiving nothing when it mattered. The silence became heavier than words, and the scars it left are still there. Doesn't it show how silence can sometimes hurt more than shouting? Some fans are stepping into the gist with a softer voice, reminding everyone that no man is perfect. Doesn't that sound true? They say before judgments fall too hard, people should remember that mistakes and silence can come from anyone. This is why they are asking for balance. Instead of turning it into a one-sided blame, they suggest everyone should think carefully. No man is flawless, and expecting perfection is only going to lead to disappointment. Doesn't that make sense? It shifts the gist from dragging alone to reflection. Fans want people to see that humans will always stumble, and that includes Maurice. So while his silence hurt Pearl, it doesn't erase the fact that he too is only human. This softer voice in the crowd is trying to cool down the heat. They want people to remember that pointing fingers forever won't change what has happened. Doesn't it surprise you how in the middle of a storm, some fans can still see things differently? That is why this gist keeps turning. It has so many layers of opinion wrapped inside it. And finally, there is a detail many people refuse to overlook. Sonia's mother's acceptance of Maurice is being brought up again and again. Isn't that powerful? To many fans, a mother's voice carries serious weight in decisions like this. If Sonia's mother has given her approval, then shouldn't that be respected deeply? People are holding on to that point because it feels like a seal of acceptance that should not be ignored. It adds another twist to this gist because it shows that family already sees Maurice in a good light. Doesn't that change how the story feels? While Sonia stays silent and Maurice waits desperately, fans keep remembering that her mother has already welcomed him. That is why people argue that this point alone should not be taken lightly. A mother's acceptance is not just an opinion, it carries value, and it could shape what comes next. So even as everyone waits for Sonia's final decision, this one fact keeps giving hope to those who support Maurice. Doesn't it make you wonder if this might eventually tip the scales? So guys, that's all for now. Have a lovely day, and bye.